Have you ever looked at the state of the world and just wondered, is there a plan? A real, workable plan to get us out of the mess we're in? Well, today, we're going to dive into one of those big ideas. It's called the Meta-Governance Blueprint, and it lays out a 5-phase journey that's meant to guide us toward a totally different kind of future, a regenerative one. So, let's get into it.
This quote right here, it just nails it. It sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. The argument isn't that we lack the technology, or the money, or even the smarts to solve our problems. The real issue, the deep issue, is that our fundamental systems, our economies, our governments, you name it, they're all just out of sync. They're misaligned with each other, and more importantly, with the planet we live on.
And you know, this massive, tangled mess of misalignment actually has a name. It's called the polycrisis. And that word is so important because it's not about just one crisis, right? It's about a whole cascade of them, all interconnected, all feeding off each other. It creates this kind of super problem that our current systems just weren't built to handle.
What I find so interesting here is how this is framed. We're not looking at a laundry list of separate problems. No. The idea is that all of these things, from climate change to the loss of trust in our institutions, are actually one single composite signal. Think of it like all the warning lights on your car's dashboard flashing at once. It's telling you the whole engine is fundamentally misaligned with reality.
Okay, so if our current operating system is crashing, what's the alternative? What's the upgrade? Well, that's exactly where this meta-governance blueprint comes into play. It's pitched as literally a new OS for human civilization. Not just a patch or a quick fix, but a whole new way of running things. A map for a massive global transformation.
So what on earth is meta-governance? It's a bit of a mouthful, but the concept is actually pretty straightforward. It's the governance of governance. And this is a crucial point. This is not about creating one single world government that tells everyone what to do. Not at all. It's much more like creating a universal adapter, or maybe a common language, that lets all the different systems we already have, countries, companies, communities, plug into each other, learn from each other, and actually work together without giving up who they are.
And just look at the difference here. This really shows you the scale of the shift we're talking about. We'd be moving away from these rigid, top-down structures that are always just reacting to the latest crisis. Instead, we'd move toward these fluid, adaptive networks that are designed to be proactive and solve problems before they blow up. It's a total shift from being siloed and competitive to being interconnected and interoperable, which is just a fancy way of saying all these different parts can finally talk to each other and sync up.
So the big question is, how do you even start something this huge? Where does this 5-phase journey begin? Well, phase 1 starts in a place you might not expect. It doesn't start with tech or with policy. It starts with us, with building our collective human capacity.
You know, the core idea here is so simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Before you can build a better system, you have to become better collaborators. It's that simple. So this first phase is all about leveling up our own skills, our ability to empathize, to trust, to learn together. Because without that solid human foundation, any fancy new system we try to build is just, well, it's a house of cards.
I absolutely love this concept. We think about roads, bridges, the internet, that's infrastructure, right? But what if we started treating trust itself as infrastructure? Phase 1 argues that trust isn't just some nice, fuzzy feeling. It is the essential bedrock. It's something that has to be intentionally built, actively maintained, and even measured to make sure any of the rest of this is even possible.
Okay, so once that human foundation of trust and collaboration is in place, the journey moves into its next really practical stage. Phases 2, 3, and 4 are all about actually building the thing, weaving this new network from the ground up.
And what's really key here is that this isn't some top-down revolution that's forced on everyone. It's designed to be an organic, bottom-up evolution. You start small. You test things out with pilot projects in real communities. Then, as those pilots show success, bigger institutions, like universities and even governments, start to plug in. And from there, these networks start connecting across borders, weaving together this coherent, collaborative fabric around the world.
And this right here is the pivot point. This is where you go from just having a bunch of cool, isolated experiments to something much more powerful. This is where those little networks mature and harden into resilient institutional ecosystems. We're not talking about temporary projects anymore. We're talking about building a new, lasting architecture for cooperation that can actually handle the pressures of the real world.
And that brings us to the grand finale, the culmination of this entire blueprint, Phase 5. This is where that fully woven network is meant to truly come alive, to become a living, breathing system for planetary coordination. The ultimate vision here is just wow. It's described as a planetary nervous system. Just think about that for a second. A system that can sense ecological stress in one part of the globe, learn from that data in real time, and then help coordinate a healthy, regenerative response across the entire planet. It's the idea of a living system for a living planet.
So, what would this planetary nervous system actually do? Well, this is where the big vision gets really concrete. We're talking about things like global platforms to actually coordinate on climate change, systems to monitor for the next big risk like a pandemic, and having real-time data from the planet, they call it a pulse, feeding directly into policy that can adapt on the fly.
Now, the engine that powers all of this has a name, the Synergy engine. You can kind of think of it as the central processor, the software at the heart of it all. It's the platform that takes in all this scattered information and all this human collaboration and synthesizes it into focused, coordinated, intelligent action. And this Synergy engine runs on a very specific rhythm, a constant cycle. You start wide, gathering all kinds of creative ideas. That's divergence. Then you integrate them, find the patterns. Then you converge, narrowing down to an actual decision. You execute it, and then, and this is so critical, you reflect. You look at what happened and you learn, you adapt. This is how the entire system gets smarter over time.
Which brings us back to this final, absolutely critical point. The whole goal of this entire 5-phase journey is not to create a centralized world power. It is not about control. The purpose is coherence. It's about creating a world where all the countless decentralized decisions being made every single day can finally start to align, to point in the same direction, towards a sane and regenerative future.
So there it is. The plans are drawn, the phases are mapped out. It's a hugely ambitious vision for how to reboot the way our world operates from the inside out. Which really just leaves us with the one question that matters most. A question that isn't about technology or policy, but is really about all of us. The blueprint is here. Are we ready to pick up the tools and start building?